Like cooking, everything has a recipe.
A set of instructions to follow in order to gain a certain result.
Music is no different.
Be it ingredients for a dish, a set list for an amazing show,
Or a release strategy for a successful launch.
these are all recipes.
Hi, we're your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brandon.
Come and join us in our kitchen as we go through the Music Maker's Cookbook.
Let's get cooking.
Welcome to the Music Maker's Cookbook, the podcast that helps independent artists cook up recipes for success in this music industry. I'm Sean.
I'm Brandon.
And we have a really interesting, more deep dive episode planned for today. It's going to be a kind of a precursor of what's going to be happening after episode 52. Since we've been doing this for almost a year at this point, which is insane. We're going to be doing more deep dive, specifically focused podcast episodes. And this one is the start of it. We're going to be diving deep into music distributors if you decide to go the independent distribution route versus going through a label, which I know you want to talk more about.
Yeah, for sure. This is probably one of the questions I get the most is how do I get my music out to Spotify, Apple Music, and all that good stuff? And this is what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to do like some kind of brief overviews of just a few different kind of music distributors. Nothing too specific because there are a lot out there and you're going to have to do your own research if you find one that is not on the list, on this list that we're covering today.
Which, speaking of, to do your own research, I am going to be including links to some resources that I use to get a lot of this information together. There's a Variety article that was kind of written about things that are happening nowadays with distribution platforms and taking down music and whatnot, which we're going to cover at the end of the episode, because distributors are now, like, just without even warning, taking down whole catalogs of music. So we got to be careful about that. But also an Ari's Take article that's all about every single, basically, music distributor out there. And there's a really easy to understand table of contents where it shows you what each one does, what the rates are, what the costs are, yada, yada, yada. It's a really good one.
Yeah.
So after this episode, once you finish listening to us and you want to do more research, the links will be down in the description of this episode.
Absolutely. Well, I think let's dive right in, right? Let's answer the big question. What is music distribution? Why should I care, right? Well, music distribution is, what were you about to say?
I was going to say, it's when you put your mixtape on a cassette or a CD and pass it out on the streets of London.
That is a form of distribution, absolutely. But for our case today, we're going to talk about distributing your music all across all digital streaming platforms. That includes iTunes, or not iTunes, that includes Spotify and Apple Music, online commerce stores like iTunes now, Amazon, things like that, and social media apps, and pretty much anywhere where you can get music online these days.
This includes a lot of options. I think DistroKid specifically says you can get it to over 150 stores and platforms.
Yep.
I don't know if this includes certain ones. Like,
I don't believe it does. I think those are separate.
Does.
Those are separate.
Same with SoundCloud. That's separate.
Yep. I'm glad you brought those two up because those are two really good free ones to just put on their platforms, but those aren't necessarily going to distribute anywhere else. You're just uploading to the platform at that point. But these do not usually fall under the umbrella of the music distribution services. Yeah. These are independents. The topic of distribution also covers physical sales, but we're not going to talk about that today. It's way too time consuming. It's complicated and it's very expensive. And plus, physical sales, you know, you can make an argument for vinyl. Sometimes you can make an argument even for cassette. People that like really bank on the nostalgia of these sounds. But
I've got a couple of cassettes from local artists in the other recording room right now. It's just fun. It's fun to do.
It is. But it's not the main thing anymore.
No, it's small scale. You can go to Target and get vinyl, but cassettes aren't that mainstream yet.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're not going to be talking about physical distribution today, just online distribution. So I want to make that delineation right now. Basically, there are two ways to do it. Either through a label, which we will not also cover today. I'm saying that a lot right now, but it's because this conversation is so dense and there's so much that goes into it that we cannot possibly cover it all in one episode, the entire umbrella of stuff. But then the other way that you can do it is through yourself by using one of these companies that we're going to talk about today. And honestly, it's the cheapest way to do it. It's the most time-effective way to do it. And there's the lowest barrier to entry to do it like this, right?
And there's so many options that whichever release...
So many. Yeah. A new one pops up every day, I swear.
Not too far off. So basically, any sort of release method you want or strategy that you want, there is a platform that is built for that kind of creation style. And as Brandon mentioned, we're only going to tackle a handful of some of the bigger ones and then some of the more interesting ones that are doing some kind of new things.
Yep.
But really, we're going to talk about the use case for each of them, why this might be positive or negative depending on the style of music you create and the release strategy that you're forming. That being said, do you want to dive more into the difference between label
Let's do it.
and this, or do you want to just dive right in?
I want to say 2 quick things real quick. I want to appreciate this episode for the information that is in here, and not necessarily the information we're giving, but just the accessibility we have to these tools these days, because these tools have broken down the barrier to entry to release your music, and it's never been easier to do it. So this is a beautiful thing because now you can be heard by everybody. That's what makes this music industry today so great, is that there's no gatekeeper in front of you. You can do whatever you want with these music platforms, obviously abiding by their rules and the law of the land.
Yep, which once again we'll talk about towards the end, the negatives of that.
Exactly. And number 2 is that some of these platforms have varying things before we move into here, right? So like I said, we're going to cover some basics, and I'm going to go over exactly what we'll be covering in this episode under each platform that we talk about. But there are some interesting extras. I think Sean kind of had them labeled at, which is awesome. But like Sean said, there's so many different distributors out here that they're trying to separate each other by doing different things, even if it's niche kind of stuff. So this research that you're going to have to do for the music distribution that will fit your music will be a bit intense. And usually it's the first one you see, is the first one you click on. Well, these days you should really sit down and do your research, because there are a lot of different options and opportunities that you can reach with these platforms.
Yep. So there are 4 major ones that I'm going to be talking about.
Yep.
That I've done research for, that you've done research for as well for this episode.
Not only research, but I've used actually some of these.
Same here.
Yeah.
And those are DistroKid, which is the largest of all of these. I think they say themselves, they publish 30% of all music that's out there.
Wild.
Which is insane. So there's DistroKid is the big one. CD Baby is another larger one.
Yep.
TuneCore, I think, is the second largest.
I think so.
And then Lander, which is a newer one to the scene. Lander has mainly been an AI mastering program, but now they're getting to the distribution game. Interesting things that I want to talk about.
Yep.
You've got a couple other ones.
I have a couple other ones just from people that I've worked with along the way. United Masters is a very popular one. That one seems to come up in hip hop a lot for some reason. Route Note is another popular one that I've seen. Ditto Music is another popular one. And then one that I've seen that nobody uses, but I'm going to mention it because it's so obscure, is Avid Play. It's actually included in our Pro Tools subscription, I think, that we can actually use that.
Really?
I think so. See, like
I had no
you
idea.
would never know. And the only reason why I knew that is because I opened Avid Link one day and I saw it. I was like, that's pretty cool. And they had like a voucher in there for like a free upload or something. So
That's pretty, yeah.
nobody uses that. No one uses it. But I just wanted to throw it out there because it's so obscure. But it just goes to show there are so many different companies out there that you really need to sit down and kind of funnel which one is right for you. So we're going to try to do that today. And the way that we're going to do that, we have a couple different categories that Sean wrote down in his handy dandy analog notebook. You'll need to pay attention to a few things: cost, royalties, payout speed, extras, crediting, mechanical licensing, and UPC and ISRC codes, and then royalty splits. Did I cover everything?
Yeah, there's a lot more you can dive into. This is kind
Absolutely.
of the main units, the selling points that when I went through and did the research that stood out to me that I really wanted to tackle. But obviously there's so much more you can dive deeper into. And once again, that's all at Ari's Take article about distributors and whatnot, which will be linked in. So if you really want to dive into a deep dive, which you should when you're going to be releasing your music, definitely go there after this episode. But so I'm just going to kind of go through all of those.
Yeah.
For each distributor so that it's kind of sectioned together. So
real quick,
first we'll do DistroKid, then we'll do CD Baby, instead of jumping around the whole time.
Small disclaimer, we are not endorsing any of these, and we are not sponsored by any of these. So we will not make money off of this, whether you will go to that platform or not. And I just want to say that real quick because we have no skin in the game. We're just merely telling you what we know. So there you go. Little disclaimer. Sean, continue.
Okay. I will say the one that I use at the end of this episode.
Oh yeah.
When we get
actually,
to it.
I'm curious to know.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know actually. So yeah.
With that being said, the very first one we're going to talk about is DistroKid. As I mentioned, DistroKid is the largest one in the game, so we kind of have to talk about it first. If you're releasing music, you've probably heard of it, at least as a distribution platform from one of your other artist buddies or whatnot, or you use it yourself.
Yep.
Now, it's one of the most cost-effective platforms on this list because it costs $22.99 per year for unlimited uploads.
Yep.
Which is insanely cheap.
Yes, it is.
The downside, the caveat,
a year.
That's a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, $30 a year to post as much songs as you want. So the caveat to this is when you stop paying the subscription model, your songs get removed.
Yep.
They're all gone. Unless You pay $29 one time per song fee to keep it on all the platforms that all the marketplaces that you've released it to. So if you pay this fee towards the end and then you switch to a different distributor for their next album or whatever, the songs stay up there. It's all good to go. The thing is, this can be super, super helpful for how cheap it is. If you're just starting, getting into it, and you just want to release your music, get feedback, get stuff out there. $23 a year to release your music. That is, as I said, it's the cheapest. It's unheard of. And it's super useful if you're just starting off, you're on a budget. What I think this is one of the best platforms for is if you are releasing, like, I see all these artists out there that release piano covers of like video game music or of TV music or lo-fi. If you're pumping out volume again and again and again, if that's part of your strategy to make it in this industry, which is a very valid strategy, there's a lot of artists that do that. This is the most cost-effective way to do it.
Yep. I think you said it best. This is the volume-based service that you're gonna probably want to go with. If you record a song a week, this is a common story within the hip hop culture. Russ, if anybody knows Russ for a while, I don't know how long he did it for, maybe it was a year or two, but he was putting out a song every Friday of every week during the year. This is what we would probably be looking at with what we would want, right? Because it would be very expensive to go through like a CD baby. We'll get to that, of course, where you're paying for every single song, opposed to you're just paying a flat rate of $23 a year. And there are also ways to get discounts on that too, so you can make it even cheaper for yourself for the first year, usually only. But this is an incredibly cost-effective way if you were pumping out so many songs and so much volume at one time. You know, this would be the route that you would most likely want to like at least gravitate towards. And I'm sure there are other platforms that would allow you to do similar things. But yeah, I definitely wanted to make that disclaimer for sure, because like within hip hop, we do a lot of music during the year. So this is very, very ideal for the hip hop artist, right? Yeah,
no, for sure. Moving on from that, the royalties return to you from DistroKid 100%. They don't take a cut. When you put it out there, they collect the royalties from streams, from all the platforms, the shops they put it on. You can opt in for other platforms or whatnot. Like you can collect from YouTube or whatnot if it makes a page for you or anything like that. And you get all the money from it. They don't take a commission fee, which is one, awesome, because you get all the money. And two, even more insane that it's $23 a year. Because it's just incredibly low cost to get into it, which once again, we'll talk about at the end, is kind of a negative at this point, depending on how you're going about it. But the positives right now are really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, at this point of the episode, the positives are thumbs up. Good to go. So why would you need anything else, Sean? Well, let's go over to CD Baby and talk about that real quick. CD Baby, $9.99 for a single and an album, right?
Yep.
Which is cheaper than it was back in the day, because you think it used to be $50 or $30 for an album.
So here's the thing. It's $9.99 per single or per album for their standard release policy. There is a pro accelerated release whatever where they have extra promotional platforms or distribute, they put it to more marketplaces or whatever, and that is about it's $59.99.
Gotcha.
For that accelerated thing.
Gotcha.
So, and that's all once again for single or for album. So it's still not crazy. But it's also by release, not a yearly plan.
Right.
So if you're releasing a lot of music, a song a week, $10 per week, that adds up.
Yeah, very quickly.
That's $480 a year.
Yeah. It'll be very expensive to kind of go down that route. But I do see this being a good thing for people who want to just upload their music and not pay again at all, and don't worry about their stuff getting taken down if you miss a credit card payment or something happens where it doesn't take the money out of your account or something like that, right? So I can definitely see the case for that. And like honestly, right here, we're just demonstrating the dichotomy between where we're at with subscriptions versus perpetual licensing these days is right here between DistroKid and CD Baby. You pay the one-time fee. It might be more expensive up front, but overall, if you're paying a subscription, it'll be yearly and you have to pay that for the rest of your life to keep your music up, unless you decide to pay the one-time fee, right? So now we're starting to kind of see that pattern kind of play out, and that's where these kind of start to differ like fairly significantly. And it all depends on what your goals are with your music and the amount of music that you're putting out in your volume per year.
And that's where the hidden cost of DistroKid kind of comes in. Is let's say you are using the $29.99 per year plan and releasing a bunch of music and you use it for 5-10 years, whatever. It's a lot cheaper in that time frame. But now let's say you keep doing this, you blow up, you get a lot of followers, and like sign with a label and they want to move distribution platforms over, or even if, for whatever reason you are just like DistroKid isn't doing it for me anymore, I've been having some problems with it or whatever, I want to move to a different distribution platform, but you still want to keep your songs out and you want to make sure that they stay in all the playlists that you're in, that people can easily find them wherever they have them saved, so you don't have to rebuild from the ground up.
Yep.
Well, now you have to pay $29 per song.
Yep.
In addition to the $23 you've been paying. And that's 3 times the cost of the one-time payment of $10 for CD Baby.
Yep.
So that's kind of where it's like sneakily more expensive if you ever shift off of DistroKid or if you ever, get signed or whatnot, or need to move things off.
Exactly. Yeah. Good call on the hidden costs, because there are definitely some things to consider up front, and your goals change as you become a bigger artist or along your longevity of your musical career, right? So this might be something to kind of like take extra time in the beginning and kind of maybe forecast out 5 years from now, right? It's so tough to do 5 years. So people sometimes ask for 10-year goals. And I'm like, dude, I don't even know where I'm going to be next year at this point, right? But this might be one of those things where it's like, okay, in 5 years, could I see myself not wanting to pay the subscription anymore? Possibly, right? So you gotta kind of like maybe sit down, make a spreadsheet or a pros and cons list, and really dive into what your goals are for sure.
Yeah. And once again, this is how you release music. If you are a group that wants to do big album drops every 2, 3, 4 years, $10 for an album, if you're releasing it all at once, that's way better than $23 a year.
Yep.
So it just depends on your release strategy.
Absolutely.
Now, in one of our earlier episodes, I think it was episode 4, we talked about release strategies really early. So if you go back and look at it, be warned, might be a lot, but it is good information. So if you do want to do a waterfall release method or whatnot, then you're paying $10 per single. But it's just another thing you got to keep in mind. How are we going to release these songs?
Absolutely.
Now, the difference is you are paying a one-time fee at CD Baby, and you're also paying a little bit of a commission fee to CD Baby for them to collect your royalties. They take a 9% cut off of anything that your music makes from any of the platforms that they put your music on.
Yep.
So instead of getting 100% back, you get 91% back.
Yep.
Now, at first, it might seem like, crap, I'm not getting all my money? That's stupid.
Right.
Kind of is. You made this music, yada, yada, yada. You should get 100% back. But there are some perks, some hidden perks to having that kind of investment in your music that CD Baby has versus other platforms like DistroKid and TuneCore, which we'll get to later. Whereas, like, hey, they are getting cut. They want your music to do well. So there's going to be a little more stake
incentive.
in the game.
Yeah. There's incentive.
Which, once again, we'll talk about at the end with what's going on with bot plays and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
All right, so we once again caught up with costs and royalties from CD Baby. Move on to the third one. TuneCore.
I have zero experience with TuneCore myself, to be totally honest. I want to be totally upfront. But the information we have is good. So $19.99 a year, and then it's free to social platforms, you said, right?
Yes. So the TuneCore is kind of interesting. They just recently switched to a yearly subscription. It used to be per song, and they just recently switched to the $20 a year platform.
Yep.
This is one of the only distribution platforms that has a free model where you can send it to social platforms without paying anything. Now, this is really, really cool if you are just workshopping it and you want to have it in like a TikTok library or any sort of social media creation library, so that way you can just pull it whenever you need it, or kind of use it as like a pre-release where it's not out anywhere, but people can use it for content creation, which is a strategy that a lot of artists have used to promote their music before the drop of it. They create content for it before it has official release date. People use the music, the 30, 60-second clip. That blows up as a popular soundbite. And then when the song releases, there's hype for it.
Yeah.
So that can be part of a cool strategy. And also, if you're just looking to get your stuff out there and get feedback, once again, there's no cost in that platform.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, this definitely is interesting. It's an interesting tool to use. I'm trying to think of like a good situation, that would be to use that on top of what you've already just kind of demonstrated. But I'm really kind of, that's it. I feel, but it is interesting though, because you can get your music out there for no barrier right there. Right. But just a social platform. So, and I don't even know what the royalty, is there a royalty on that?
I don't know.
Do you recoup royalties? I don't know if you do either. That would be something interesting to look into.
A lot of social media platforms payouts are incredibly low to begin with.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know TikTok's was, and that's why UMG got all bent out of shape. Yeah. Right. So TBD us on that. We're gonna look into that. We will. We'll look into that. How do the royalty structures go with TuneCore?
Well, real quick, I just want to bring up, you were saying like different strategies or whatnot.
Oh yeah.
As we mentioned at the beginning of this, there are free platforms to get your music out, like Bandcamp and SoundCloud,
yeah.
where they're just platform specific, not on
Reverb
Spotify
Nation.
everywhere out. Yep. Which I don't know about that.
Yeah,
I've had
I
a couple
don't
artists use it, and it's just very weird.
It's kind of clunky.
It's very weird. Anyways, this would be a potential strategy to do kind of like a grassroots kind of low end thing where you just have your stuff out on Bandcamp where people can pay you directly and you get all the royalties on Fridays or whatever.
Yeah.
Or link them to SoundCloud so you can get your songs out on specific platforms for free and still get it in front of anyone who's using social media to make content for that can then send you send them towards these platforms where the song already releases. It's an interesting way to do it, but it's a free way of doing it.
Yeah. Good point. Excellent point. Excellent point. Going back to TuneCore real quick. How do the royalty standards or how are the royalties structured with TuneCore?
So TuneCore has two options. Normally, well, just standard, it's 100%. You get all your royalties back for up to you. The difference is they also have an accelerator program where they do some pushing, marketing, whatever on their end, and in which case they take a 20% cut and you get 80% of it.
Gotcha.
So that's something you can opt into, look into it, do your own research, decide whether or not that's the way you want to do it. But just know that when you do, they take a cut.
Yeah, 20%.
Standard, 100%.
Yeah, totally. And 20% is pretty significant, especially if you're making some good money off of your music at this point, right? So definitely be wary of that and weigh your pros and cons. Like I always say, do your research. Next one we're going to move on to is an interesting one.
Yeah, this is one that's really new to the game as far as I know.
Yeah, you and I are familiar with this platform, and we've been familiar for quite some time, right?
For a much different reason.
Yes, for a much different reason. Yeah. This one is Lander, and Lander is spelled without the E at the end, which has always pissed me off. I love vowels, so like put the vowel in there, you know? No, I'm just kidding.
LANDR.
Yeah. It's $99 a year. The pro version is $149 a year and some change. I didn't write down the change.
Yeah.
But yeah, both cover 100%, or the yearly plans have 100% royalties, but the pay as you go have 85% royalties. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so if you want to pay per song, not per year, then they take a 15% commission on top for whatever you make from it.
Yeah.
But for the yearly plan, it's $100 a year, and it might sound expensive compared to the 23 for DistroKid and the 20 for TuneCore. The difference here is that Lander, before being a distributor, is a mastering, an AI mastering platform.
Yep.
Where you upload your tracks, they'll master it for you, give you the files back. It's what they used to do. Now they can distribute it right away.
Yep.
So you're not just paying for a year of unlimited uploads, you're paying for a year of unlimited mastering and then uploads. Now the 150 Pro one, this is where it gets kind of interesting for people kind of more like me and Brandon. If you are running your own DAW to record, mix, master, all that, your own music before you publish it, the $150 option, roughly, gives you Lander specific plugins. I think it's like 15 of them in total. The main one being Lander mastering plugin.
Yeah.
Where you can use their AI and have more control than just uploading it and getting it back. You can then master it inside of your DAW and tweak it to get it to sound just how you want it to.
Yeah.
So for $150, you get all these plugins, unlimited mastering still, unlimited upload still. So it's kind of like a plugin suite subscription, which is unfortunately kind of getting more and more popular.
It is. It is.
These
Yeah.
subscription models are increasing.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
But if you're making your own music, it could be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. This one is obscure, and I'm glad that you brought that up. And why exactly we're talking about this one is because of the extras you kind of get from it, right? And it's kind of a tweaker's dream if you're doing the pro version too, because then you can actually get it, like you said, you can take advantage of the AI mastering tool, but then you can also tweak it from there, right? Because I think on standard Lander, when you do the mastering through there, you get 3 different versions. And then you choose the best one you want, or you have it remaster it or something. I'm not super familiar with that, but like I said, Sean and I are familiar with Lander because they've been on the scene for forever. They're really just trying to become a one-stop shop now by getting into the distribution lane. Hopefully they don't come out with anything that's like a automated or mixing, you know, because that'd suck really bad for us. That'd
Probably
be
eventually.
Uber complicated, but I wouldn't say never. Nope, it's coming. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers like the cost and the royalty kind of splits from each one that we're kind of going to talk about today. We're only talking about 4 today. Like I said, there's a bunch of out there that we could talk about for hours and hours on end. So the next main category that we have up is actually payout speed, because payout speed is important because, I mean, you want to get paid for your music, right? And maybe be able to invest that back in or live off of it. That'd be great. So we're going to start with DistroKid again. DistroKid is by withdrawal. You can do it anytime you want as long as you fill out your tax form. You got to do your tax forms first. Actually, they will stop you before you can actually collect anything if you don't have your tax form set up. CD Baby, you can collect weekly. Which is really nice. TuneCore is quarterly, so you kind of have to wait a few months before you're able to collect on your money every quarter.
Which is positive because you get
the
big dump at once.
Yep.
And if you're doing quarterly taxes or whatnot, it makes it easy to be like, okay, this is the full amount that I got.
Exactly.
Instead of having to be like, okay, well, I withdrew this much, and how much was it total for this year or this quarter? Does this overlap with last year? Like, yeah. It's like, nope, this was this quarter, this was this quarter. So for that purpose, it makes it easier. But as you mentioned, you have to wait.
Exactly. And you know, I mean, I prefer total freedom. So do whatever you want. So by withdrawal is great. But if you're running like your band as a business, your artistry as a business, quarterly would make the most sense to do the draws from, right? So that way you have the analytics and the statistics from quarter to quarter. Yeah. And then Lander, you can do it on every first week of the month.
Yeah, that's how quickly it. So just to be clarified, this isn't saying you have to get it the first week of the month for Lander. If you log in on the second week, you can't get it anymore. It's like, no, this is just when they collect the royalties and when they send it out. Yeah. For TuneCore, it's like you set it up, they do a deposit and all that. As far as my understanding of it, for things like CD Baby and DistroKid, you kind of have to log in and withdraw it when you want it, or you can set a threshold for automatic payout when it reaches that threshold. Yep. At least that's how CD Baby works. Which, by the way, CD Baby is the platform that I've been using for my music.
Oh man, I thought we were gonna get the reveal at the end.
No, and we're talking about it, so I just want to say like,
fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah, so that's kind of how it works. It collects it up to a certain amount, and then if it reaches it, it'll automatically deposit. But you can withdraw it before that point if you need to within that time frame. Totally. But that's just how fast it updates and collects the royalties for you, which then you can pull from the platform. Yeah.
Yep. Payout speed's good?
Yep.
Cool. Let's move on to the next one. Extras. Extras are interesting.
Yeah.
And I have something written down that I will do a caveat on after we talk about the good extras that come with some of these platforms, because there are certainly bad extras, and I will talk about those as well. Do you want to start with the good ones, Sean?
Yeah. So basically, a lot of these will offer paid extras like a Bandzoogle page or extra boost for distribution. A lot of them partner with Groover. I know that's what TuneCore uses. I believe DistroKid uses pushes Groover as well, which can get you into hot water. Weirdly enough, even though it's officially promoted by these publishers, Spotify doesn't want artists to pay directly to promote or get plays on their platform. Yeah. And that can get you into some trouble if they catch you or whatnot. But that's all these publishers do have partners with these kind of platforms where they'll say, yeah, just use this, and they'll help get you on playlists, promote it, radio play, yada, yada, yada. DistroKid has some kind of more unique ones. For example, they will distribute your music videos. Be it on
and that's been kind of new. I think they just started it within the last year and a half or so. Yep.
Which if you're doing full length music videos or whatnot, that can be a really useful tool to use. I have a client who just recently finished uploading all of his music videos. So now they're on pretty much every platform out there, and he's super excited about that. We're gonna kind of check in and see how that works out for him after the next quarter, because that's how. Oh no. Well, yeah, he catches up and reviews it every quarter, so we're gonna look at it and see how it goes.
Totally.
They'll offer like a social phone number.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So it's a separate number just for your band, so you can give it to contacts in the industry to call that instead of your personal number.
Yep, or fans.
If
you want to have people text you.
Yep, which is really cool. If you don't want to get it through DistroKid though, you can just get Google Voice. That's what I personally use for my studio. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, but it is kind of neat that it offers it, because you might be thinking, that's an interesting tool that you could use for your band that you might not be thinking about necessarily. As I said, they all kind of have that basic fundamental, like Bandzoogle, promotional platform, whatever. As you mentioned earlier, Lander has those plugins as an extra as well. So you can get the specific suite to get all that mastering and mixing and whatever the plugins do yourself.
Yeah, especially if you're an audio nerd like us, that's pretty cool. Something else that you can do with DistroKid too, I just want to mention this too real quick, is you can actually get music visualizers from them. So like if you want people to if you want to upload your separate music visualizer to YouTube, because DistroKid, I think some of these other platforms will also do the same, but they will upload a picture of your album art to YouTube with your song playing under it. You cannot control that in any way. You actually cannot break into those accounts at all. You don't have access to them. So that is definitely kind of a negative that I've experienced a little bit, but it's really just another place for your song to live. So it's decent for SEO purposes, I would say, but then you're kind of going to be splitting streams a little bit if you decide to upload your own music visualizer, which this is where it kind of comes into play. If you want your music to be presented in a professional or more visual way, you can actually pay for I think they're like $10. They're pretty cheap. The music visualizers are, but they're templatized. So you're going to be using the same visualizer as everybody else. That's where the drawback kind of comes into play. But you can do that. So it's kind of a cool extra that you can do. You can also do, I believe there's song contests on DistroKid. They have a whole platform behind the scenes for that, which is kind of cool. You can enter your song into some kind of contest or promotion that they're running, and you can kind of get feedback. And not only that, but vote. And I think you vote on your favorite tracks, in that pool, which is really cool. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that is really unique about DistroKid that's positive, because there are definitely some negatives, I would say, with DistroKid, and that includes some of the extras that they give you. And this kind of plays into the more technical side of things, but the one negative that I've seen and I've come across a few times is DistroKid saying that they will bring your song up to a certain standard of loudness to be uploaded onto a platform. So they're going to say, to make sure that you're compliant with the loudness of each streaming platform, you have to pay a certain amount of money per song or something like that, right? Or per upload. And to be totally honest, that's bullshit, because the way that these DSP services like Spotify and Apple Music work is that your songs are normalized. They're not limited. So it's just going to turn it down to the maximum point anyways from your song to what the standard listening is on Spotify or Apple Music. And depending on whether you even had that setting on or not, right, is a different situation. But basically what that allows the platform to do is make sure that there's a cohesive listening experience from song to song. So that way you're not always adjusting the volume knob, right?
If you've ever listened to music on a CD in your car or anything, or made a mixtape or whatnot to give to somebody or to listen to yourself of your favorite songs back in the day when you had to put on physical media, then you probably remember some songs are just way louder than others.
Yep.
That's
just a part of the game.
Just a part of the game.
Yep, absolutely. And DistroKid offers this as a service, but it doesn't need to be a service at all. So this is actually, in my opinion, one of the worst extras that you could probably buy on DistroKid. By all means, if you want to explore that route, do whatever you want. But as two people that work in this area, right, a definite forego. And you have to be wary of these things. So it just takes a little bit more education and maybe speaking with somebody that you're working with along the way and asking, do I really need this extra service, right?
Oh, yeah.
This extra upcharge that might not necessarily bring me any benefit in the long run anyways. So I did want to mention that there might be some kind of BS kind of stuff going on. I don't know for sure, and I don't want to be held for liable or whatever, at all, but definitely be wary of what you're purchasing and why you're purchasing it, for sure.
Oh, for sure. The last thing I do want to mention real quick is that TuneCore also promotes that they have sync licensing opportunities as well, in addition to promotion or whatnot. So if you really want to get into sync, but not go too crazy with it, you can look into what TuneCore does and figure that all out, whether that's the right route for you to go. Moving on to credits, on what kind of credits you can attach to your upload so that it shows up on these platforms. If you notice, credits are getting more and more important in this industry.
Yep, as well as they should be.
Yeah, who's performing on it, who wrote the song, who mixed it, who mastered it, who the producer is, all this sort of stuff.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And this is where certain platforms really fall flat on their face.
It's true. And I want to mention too that these, when we're mentioning through the music distributors, these crediting credit liners, right, that they're called, these do not necessarily dictate what's actually going to be shown on Spotify or Apple Music, because that is dictated by Spotify and Apple Music at some point, right? But they do show a couple of them. But you will have the opportunity to do a lot of credit liner notes for each service. So hopefully one day when Apple Music and Spotify catch up, we'll be able to see everybody get credited for what they're worth. So what they did, because that is important. That's the work that they did. So I just want to put that out there real quick, a little bit of a quick disclaimer, but what do you got for us?
So DistroKid does a great job with this.
They do.
Any credit that you could potentially give to put it out there, they can do it. On the flip side, CD Baby falls on its fucking face on this one. The only credits that it shares are songwriting credits.
Yeah.
That's all you can put in when you distribute through CD Baby. TuneCore has a set list of what they do. They don't do all of them, but they do share the main artist, featured artists, songwriter, producer, actor, composer, lyricist, and remixer. Those are all the ones that they do. The ones that Lander can share are composer, publisher, producer, actor, arranger, choir, conductor, engineer, ensemble, soloist, mixer, remixer, and orchestra. Some of these I don't even know what they do.
No, seriously.
I don't know how orchestra is different than like a featured or whatever.
I don't know either.
If it's a group, you can share on a featured artist or whatever.
Right.
But
I mean, the specificity is nice. The specificity is nice.
That's an option for a genre and a type of music that I don't do. Maybe it's great for
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, for like soundtracks or whatever, but they have a lot more options than CD Baby's songwriter only.
Yep, totally. I do want to mention real quick that the DistroKid thing is great. When you go to upload a song, you won't necessarily see each one of these being able to be credited right away. You'll actually have to go into your liner notes section of the settings and then go find the respective song that you're trying to credit for, and then type in everything, all the information that you have and all the names that you have under the credit liner notes. So I wanted to make that clear that it's not under the upload necessarily, but it's in the back half of the app itself.
I appreciate you clarifying that.
Yeah, totally. No, because I tried looking for it like when I first was using DistroKid, couldn't find it, and I was like, oh, it's here. So you actually have to do like an extra kind of step. It won't be like spelled out in front of you. And when you're uploading a song, you only get songwriter or producer and songwriter and producer. That's it. That's the only thing you can credit for in the front half of it, but in the back half, when you go in, you can credit for more.
Yeah.
Yep. And you can credit for damn near everything. It's impressive.
You can think it, you can credit it.
Yep, absolutely.
Moving on to another feature that might not be useful for a lot of artists, especially independent artists who are focusing on putting out especially for independent artists who are looking to put out, I can't think of the word. It doesn't start with an I. I'm dumb. Especially for independent artists who are looking to put out original pieces of music. Original pieces of music. Original. This is whether or not the publishing platform will help you obtain a mechanical license for cover songs. DistroKid, straight up, yes, they do, for $1 a song.
Not bad.
A month. $1 a month per song.
Ooh, there we go.
Yep.
Another cost.
But still, not bad.
Not bad.
As we go on. Doesn't give you a mechanical license, doesn't help you with that. But they do have cover song licensing help. Like you can go down that path and they will help you get it through their links and whatnot, but they don't have the option built into that distribution platform. As far as TuneCore goes, they do $70 for 500 plus digital downloads. So if you get a lot of digital downloads, it's $70. And if it's less than 500, it's $17 plus they take a little bit of the royalties.
Okay.
And then Lander, just $15 per song.
Nice.
And I don't believe that's per month. It might be per month.
Okay.
I don't believe it is.
Gotcha.
All these details, once again, Ari's take.
yeah, for sure.
But if you are doing cover songs, and a lot of them, DistroKid is great because for $1 a month and you're releasing a bunch of cover songs, it's really cheap. You can just get it out there versus having to do one up front. TuneCore, as you said, it's dependent on downloads, which they keep track of and whatnot. So it could be 17 plus royalties, or it could be 70, depending on how much people are downloading it, viewing it, all that.
Totally.
Lander might be best in this case if it is $15 per song, just straight up.
Just a flat up rate.
Yeah. Especially if it's just going to stay out there as a cover song for a long time.
Yeah.
Then you don't have to worry about paying that $1 a month. Which there are some awesome bands that basically all they do is cover songs. Sure. Like Postmodern Jukebox. Love that. Love that group. So if that's kind of the music that you're doing, these are something to keep in mind when looking on the distribution platform, whether or not they help you achieve this. Absolutely.
I think we have one last main point of these, right? Is UPC codes, ISRC codes, all the codes, right? Yeah. Yes on all.
Yep.
They all offer it. They all offer it.
Do they do it? Yes. This is the
Yes.
shortest section of this episode.
Yep. Nice. That was a good one. No, but it's important though. It's important to know if they do these so that way you don't have to go out and buy a separate ISRC code or get it registered or something. It's all done within house, so which is really nice.
Yep. And I know specifically for CD Baby, they just ask you right up front when you're uploading the song, do you want us to give you one, yes or no? And then you say no. Yes, and then they make it, or you say no and they don't. So
Yep.
if you are re-uploading a couple songs to turn it into a EP or an album, like we mentioned with the waterfall method, then you want to say no, I have an ISRC, give them the ISRC code that they gave you previously, and then now it's just part of the EP or the album versus having it keeps all the plays for the song instead of having a separate single
Keeps that
play,
all
a
tracked,
separate CD, separate album or separate EP. It just keeps track of all the information.
It's basically your music serial number.
Yes.
Pretty much. That's pretty much what I call it. So definitely important to have and important to note on each track. Like, especially like Sean said, if you're re-uploading a song and trying to connect it back to like the original upload, you need that code to be able to upload because there will not be any duplicates that will be allowed on any of these platforms, right? So good thing to bring up.
Yep. The last thing I'm just going to really quickly go over because it can get kind of complex when you really dive into it is payment splitting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Pretty much all of these have the option to do it.
They do.
Just in various degrees or whatnot. So this one, if you're not the full ownership of your song, if you want to split it between all your bandmates instead of having a band account, which I would recommend having a band account and splitting it from there so you can keep track of like the whole income right off the bat. Or if you have a featured artist or whatever it may be, then it can be very, very imperative to make sure that you are able to split these payments to multiple accounts versus just the one.
Absolutely.
It makes it automatic. It makes it easier. So look into that. That's something to definitely keep in mind when you decide how to publish your music. Okay, so those are kind of the quick, basic topics and for like things we recommend you look out for. Kind of the big things to decide which platform you want to do. Real quick, I want to personally say like why I use CD Baby, and that's just because I don't release music all that frequently. I'm gonna do it more and more, but it's been 2 years since I released the song before my last song, and I don't need to pay the $23 a year. And also, I don't want my songs to disappear if I don't pay. To me, that's well worth the extra upfront cost.
Totally.
Than having to worry like, oh crap, it's a new credit card. I have to update my payment for my music as well as all the other bills or whatever automatic payments that I have. And since I don't upload all that frequently, it just makes sense for me to have a one-time fee. As far as royalties, I'm not looking to be a musician for a living.
Yeah.
So if they take a 9% commission, it doesn't affect me.
Yep.
And all that stuff. Versus DistroKid and TuneCore, where it is a small yearly fee.
Yep. So
real quick, are there any ones that you've used or
yeah,
things you want to talk about?
I was a DistroKid user for a really long time. I didn't release music at all, so I didn't really need it. But the reason why I had it was for royalty splits. So that's like a little caveat, right? Is that you need an account to be able to receive the royalty splits if you're a producer, right? So you got to take that into consideration too. So it's not necessarily just for music streaming uploads and things like that, but also getting your splits from people that are also using DistroKid as a platform. I had that for a while, and I decided the amount of money I was spending on it, because I had the second tier one to be able to do all the customizable stuff and everything like that, and have two different artists under the same name, under the same account, which is $40 a year, but I wasn't getting that much in royalties, so I didn't see it as a need, right? So I ended up just canceling the subscription, didn't need it at the time. But I'm extremely familiar with DistroKid just because everybody uses DistroKid that I work with. And that's the one I had most experience with.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, before we end this episode, there's something that's happening lately in this industry that I really want to talk about. The Variety article that I'm going to link to, as well as a podcast that, once again, Ari's take. He interviews Ben Jordan about this, and it is platforms taking down whole entire catalogs because they get notifications from Spotify that there are fraudulent streaming activity that is occurring, that is happening. So what a lot of people are doing, not a lot, but what can happen nowadays is people can pay for streams, or they can be victims of a targeted attack if someone wants to take down your music or whatnot. Or if you go to a platform that puts you on multiple playlists, people will have playlists that have botted listeners. This is technically fraud.
Yep.
Because they're
Absolutely
not real
fraud.
listens. So, and Spotify still has to pay out for it.
Right.
So they really need to crack on this because Spotify's starting to finally want to maybe be profitable sometimes.
Sometime soon, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. So because Spotify, if you don't know, has been running at a deficit for a long, long time.
I think
from
since
angel
their-
investor money.
Yep,
Yeah.
I think since their creation.
Now there have been quarters where they have been profitable.
For sure.
It's not like they've never been, but they wanted to be. They want to start being consistently
Mm-hmm.
profitable. That's kind of why the rates recently went up a little bit for monthly and all this deal.
Yep.
But if you're getting fraudulent streams and they're paying you for it, that's fraud. So
That
they
is
really
fraud.
want to crack down on that.
Yep.
Now here's the shitty thing of how they're doing it. They're currently sending to the publisher, hey, we've detected that a certain amount of these plays on this song, the number I've seen floating around is 90% or more, are fraudulent. So we are going to charge the publisher or give them a fee. This is what Spotify has said. We're going to charge the publisher for publishing this song, for having it out. There's not, at least of my last learning or looking into this, there hasn't been a documented case of them actually doing this, of charging publisher, but the emails, the threat is out there. So what some publishers are doing is when they get this email from Spotify saying, we've detected fraudulent activity on this artist's account, instead of being like, oh shit, I don't want to pay this fee of like $10 per song or whatever it may be. I'm just gonna, because like a TuneCore or a DistroKid, if you have a catalog of 50 songs and it's $10 fee per song, that's $500, and they're only getting $23 a year from you.
Yep.
So what they're doing is they're just removing your music.
Yep.
This happened to a client of mine not that long ago. He used TuneCore, and they got an email from Spotify saying fraudulent streams. So they took down all of his music across every single platform. Now, the artist who I'm working with, who this happened to, has a lawyer, has a music lawyer. So we contacted him, who contacted TuneCore, who got in yada, 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 saying, hey, no, we didn't do any of this. We didn't pay for any bots or whatever. They worked it out. They re-uploaded his music. 3 months later, happened again. They took down his music again because we noticed fraudulent streams. The difference is this time he didn't use anything except for Groover, which TuneCore themselves promotes as a music promotional tool. So it's like, what can you do when the tool that the publishers are telling you to use can cause you to get fraudulent streams that can take down your entire catalog? Not only do they take down your catalog, they also withhold payment when they do this. So TuneCore was like, yeah, these $30,000, that $30,000 from royalties from the last quarter that we owe you, we're not paying you that.
Damn.
And it just gets real shitty, real messy.
Yeah.
You need to look into it. Once again, recommend listening, like reading the Variety article that's going to be linked here, and listening to the podcast episode where he recommends Ben Jordan, who is a huge artist who's gotten over, I think he said $500,000 from royalty streaming. So like he's up, he's not small.
Yeah.
And when he contacted them, their thing was, oh, well, you should be part of our VIP system so this doesn't happen again. Which is one, bullshit.
Yeah. Total bullshit.
That if you're part of this higher program, if you're big enough, then they'll treat you differently. But also that there was no communication. He found out because he was looking up his own song as a reference in the studio and thought, oh, Spotify's just glitching. But then fans started messaging him saying, hey, why'd you take your music down? That's kind of how my client found out when TuneCore took it down, because, hey, why'd you take your music down?
Yeah.
There's no communication here. And the platforms reserve the right to just remove it. And as Ari goes on, the language they're using kind of paints the artist as the fraudulent.
Yeah.
It's their fault, even though a lot of times, as you said, it's the artists who are at fault, and they're using the services that are recommended by the distributors. This is where I think DistroKid and TuneCore kind of, that cheap pricing model becomes a negative, because a lot of times when this happens to artists, they don't get notified. There's no, hey, we've noticed this happening, here's your first warning, or hey, yada yada yada, pay this fine or whatever. They just remove it because it's not worth it to them, and that's just not right.
Yeah.
That's just not right.
Yeah.
I haven't heard this happening on many other platforms because it's just starting to really pick up. But whereas like other platforms like CD Baby, they take a 9% commission. So they have more invested interest in your music. So if they get a bunch of fraudulent streaming things, it's like, well, wait a minute. Maybe we should notify the artist so that we don't lose out on the 9%. Yeah. because they have a hand in the game now. So
And like that's what should happen.
that's what should happen.
What should happen.
But it's not what's happening.
Right.
And I said the language is what's really frustrating. If you look at the Variety article, there's screenshots from DistroKid to an artist who this happened to. He references the Ben Jordan guy I mentioned, Jonah Baker, another person that this happened to, and a couple other specific interviews from other artists that this has happened to. They basically say, like, you have to sign saying, I'm paying this fee. I will never promote my music on Spotify again, yada, yada, yada. Really painting the artist as the villain, which, as we mentioned, you're probably not. You're probably just using... You're probably not doing anything, or... Probably. Or you're using the publisher promoters that the publisher recommends.
Yeah. I mean, this is something serious because, I mean, I haven't seen it. I haven't personally dealt with it at all. And I don't think any of my clients have. And if they have, then they haven't told me. But this has some serious legal implication on the back end of it that you have to be careful of, because I don't know. This is early on in the game. We're definitely early on in the diffusion curve of this kind of happening right now. And so laws and other statutes might be put into place springing from this. So this has some serious implications to it, where you might need to have a lawyer on your side, or maybe it's time to start looking into actually creating an LLC for yourself, right? So that way you have limited liability on your end. I'm not a lawyer. Go talk to a lawyer. This is not professional legal advice,
not legal
of
advice.
course, but this has legal implications, and that's why I'm kind of mentioning that, just to protect yourself, because if people are getting dinged for things that they're not doing, that's not fair. That's not fair. But you do have to protect yourself in the forefront. Like I said, this is not professional legal advice, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not your lawyer because I'm not a lawyer. So there you go. There's multiple disclaimers right there. But just want to let you know that I'm not a lawyer, but definitely talk to somebody who is a lawyer and who is your lawyer for your music. So it's good to know though that this is happening.
As I mentioned, the only two I've really heard a lot of examples from are DistroKid and TuneCore. As I mentioned, DistroKid has like a 3-strike or earlier kind of system in place where they will let you know, hey, strike 1, strike 2, strike 3. And they say on the 3rd strike or earlier, so they reserve the right to remove it on the 1st strike. The song gets removed with a $10 fine to reinstate. So, yep, you just pay the fine and it goes back.
Yeah.
The difference with TuneCore, this is why I honestly don't like TuneCore at this point in time. Maybe they'll change. What they will tell the artist is, this is in quotes, there is no situation when these releases will be reinstated. Later in the message it says, do not contact us to reinstate releases. They will not re-upload your music. You can't pay a fine. You can't, do whatever. They just will not reinstate your music. Even if it is no fault of your own. If this is your fault, ignore all this. Stop. Please stop.
Yeah, stop
Please
doing
just
that.
fucking stop.
It's actually legitimately fraud.
It's hurting you and everyone, and it is fraud. Now you're opening depending on how much you collect, you're opening yourself up to big legal issues.
Absolutely. If you're making a lot of money off of this, they're going to figure it out.
Yes. If you're not, like most of us, if not all of us listening, because if you're taking this seriously, you're not doing this dumb shit. If you're doing this dumb shit, stop. If you're not, like all of us, fuck yeah. But as I said, it's God, it's insanely frustrating when your music is just gone. And especially if you're making an amount from it that helps fund your tour, or you want to reinvest in studio time and you just don't collect it. And this is once again where TuneCore's issue of quarterly, it can be a positive, but it can also be a negative where it's like, well, crap, they just don't pay me.
Yeah.
Thousands of dollars, depending on how big of an artist you are, how much you've been pushing and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's just messy. It's the early stages of it. There's not too much transparency in it, depending on what exactly is going on. And there was one artist, like the Jonah Baker, they got a note from DistroKid saying, we've detected this song has 100% fraudulent streams.
Wow.
That song got on one of Spotify's official playlists.
Oh, that's so funny.
So there's no way.
Yeah.
There is literally no way that it's 100%.
Yeah.
But there's no transparency.
Landed on an editorial playlist and then got dinged.
Yep.
An editorial playlist who's sorted by a legitimate human.
Yep. So it's getting frustrating. It's getting messy. And if you end up in this situation, God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this just illustrates the importance of keeping your ISRC code close and handy. Like, don't rely on the platform keeping that information for you, because if they take it down, I don't know if they still show you that ISRC code that they gave you originally.
I don't know if he kept it, because my client was able to re-upload.
No, you're good. But I also assume that using these same ISRC code that was found for botting would also be like, oh, red flag, right? So I don't know if they like keep it.
So
right?
my client was able to I don't know if he had them stored somewhere. He was able to reaccess them from TuneCore, but he moved from TuneCore to DistroKid and was able to input the ISRC codes. Yeah. So he kept all of his streams and whatnot.
Which is exactly why it's important to have the ISRC codes so you can move to different distributors.
Yes. But what it doesn't do is reinstate it in playlists that your song was in. So every single playlist that he got on is now gone.
Yep.
Which is, including the botted ones, but also all the legitimate ones. All the ones that his fans put them on.
Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes your song just lands on a botted playlist and there's nothing you can do about it, right? Like, I don't know, sometimes it's just weird how Spotify's system kind of works. And because I've seen it before where it's like, where we've had songs that are like, oh yeah, cool. And then it's like, all of a sudden they're blown up and it's like, this is totally a botted playlist. This sucks, not one of my songs, but with some of my clients' songs, that have happened. And it's like, well, it skews the data and prevents any decent work from being done because you don't know where the money's going and what return you're getting. I also want to make a quick mention too, slight disclaimer. Probably the reason why we've seen it from TuneCore and DistroKid at this point is because they're the two most popular at this point, right? So more volume equals maybe more opportunity for this to happen. This doesn't mean that it can't happen elsewhere. Just be wary of that when you're going to decide. Of course, sometimes this is out of your control. If this happens to you and you are not a proprietor of the cheating, then that sucks. But if you are a proprietor of the cheating, like we said, please stop.
Please stop. So here's one more thing I want to say on this, just to clarify why this is a big deal. We're not saying Spotify says, hey, we are noticing fraudulent streams. And then the publisher's like, oh, okay, it's off of Spotify. No, it's off everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. And they're not giving you revenue for everywhere. Anything from YouTube, from Apple Music, from Amazon Music, for any digital sales, for all that stuff, anything they collect, they'll withhold it because Spotify says we just noticed some fraudulent streams. They're just protecting their ass. And as you mentioned, if it's $20 a year, like they are going for the volume model. It's not worth for them to do that. Plus, a lot of these artists, where the artists removing it, are smaller. The one reason it got as big and I became aware of it was because of the Ben Jordan guy, who's got hundreds of thousands of like he's got songs that have millions of plays. So he's big enough where it actually made an impact.
Yeah.
But a lot of these smaller artists, like, it just happens. Yeah. It's just part of the industry right now.
Absolutely.
Which fucking sucks. But that's why it's really important to be careful with it and to not do this because it's gone everywhere.
Yep. Totally agree. I have nothing to add to that. Well
so
said.
That's our conversation on distributors. Hopefully it was helpful to you. Hopefully that with the resources in our conversation, it got you thinking about which one you need to use or which one you want to switch to if you potentially want to switch it up. Things to look out for, things to be aware of, all this stuff. That being said, I'm going to keep using CD Baby.
Yeah, by all means.
Because it's not really, as I said, being a musician is not my end game, but I still need to get my stuff out there so I can showcase some of these strategies, some things to do to make an impact with your music.
Totally.
Which, going into it, I have a project called Painfully Glad where I have different social media platforms. I'm posting music. I'm doing waterfall methods, yada, yada, yada. Pretty much anything we talk about in the show, I'm going to slowly build up and start implementing so you can look at it as a test case of, hey, what is a way to do it and actually get a visual and audio look into it. And then I'll eventually start talking about it on this show. Like, hey, these are some data points that I've noticed. These are some things that I've tried out. Just kind of a way for me to put my own foot in it and get direct feedback versus just looking into it from other artists, articles, all that.
Totally.
So you can check that out. Or if you have some work you want to get done, you can go to my website, swsrecordings.com, where I do remote mixing and mastering, if you're local, in studio mixing and mastering and recording. And I also offer one-on-one artist development coaching. So if that's something you want, it's basically, once again, this podcast, but specifically built for you, all from planning your goals to putting together a wardrobe to specific releases, yada, 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 anything to put a package together to help promote you as an artist and get your career to the next level. That being said, Brandon, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website at studio222recording.com. And you can find me there. You can request a quote. Request a quote. Wow. Yikes.
It's like my merch booth.
It was. Yeah, it was exactly like that. I work on a lot of hip hop, a lot of pop, things like that. I also work on everything else as well. I just love doing this stuff. If you want to hit me up, that's totally cool. You can find out more information there, view the portfolio, whatever the case may be. You can also find me on all different kind of social media platforms, including Instagram and Facebook. That's it, because I don't have any other ones, which is kind of funny how I introduced that then. At Studio 222 Recording, or you can find me at my personals at my personals _ Brandon McLeod.
Nice.
Yep.
And if you want to contact both of us or communicate with the podcast directly, we have social media platforms, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, all at Music Makers Cookbook. You can also reach out to us at podcast@musicmakerscookbook.com. Leave us an email if there's any specific person you want us to do an interview with, a topic you want us to dive into, any questions you just briefly have. We try to look at it as frequently as we can and get back as soon as we can. So, reach out, give us an idea, let us know if you need anything.
Absolutely. We'd love to hear from you.
That all being said, from our kitchen to yours, thank you for joining us as we dive into these distributors and talk about all these ingredients for making music.
Bon appetit.